Never a dull moment when covering the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Black and Gold Breakdown on the channel. I am Jarrett Bailey, covering all things the Pittsburgh Steelers. And another free agent signing for the Steelers. They are signing running back, receiver, return specialist Cordarrelle Patterson to a 2-year deal worth $6 million. And yeah, Patterson, who spent the last 3 years in Atlanta with Arthur Smith, now reunites with his former head coach, now offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, on a 2-year deal. Last year, the production took a little bit of a dip after they drafted Bijan Robinson, and Tyler Algier was there as well. But you look at 2022 and 2021, he had combined 14 touchdowns on the ground. Obviously, the 9 career kickoff return touchdowns, which on the day that the NFL adapts the XFL kickoff, one can assume that this is going to be, a very reactionary signing for the Steelers, where Cordarrelle Patterson's primary role will be as the team's kick returner. He also will slot in as a third running back behind Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris. So if one of them were to sustain an injury, Cordarrelle Patterson would then slide in as the other running back. And Patterson, right, he's 33 years old. So, he's an aging veteran. But again, another one of these signings where, the Steelers add, some quality depth. But this one, Patterson fits a very specific role where he's going to be the kick returner and he can make a difference in that role, where, you look at the signings of Quez Watkins and Van Jefferson, where those are going to be, primarily, guys who are fighting for, the 4th and 5th receiving spots on the depth chart alongside Calvin Austin. And I've been saying, all for the past probably year, because even going into last year, fans were like really high on Calvin Austin. And I've been saying, like, look, he's going to fill, a role on the team, but he's not going to be, the third option in the offense. That's just not going to happen. So with the Patterson signing, he'll be the team's primary kick returner. He'll slide in as the third running back. And maybe, get some snaps at, in the slot. They could utilize him similar to the way that, Deebo Samuel gets utilized, not obviously as frequently and as effective, but, if Arthur Smith wanted to put Patterson in the slot, as well as, using him as the kick returner, maybe give him a few carries out of the backfield. The only 2 running backs to have a carry last year for the Steelers were Harris and Warren. So I don't think that Patterson's going to get like a ton of offensive snaps. But again, on the day that the NFL adapts the XFL kickoff, it's very evident that the Steelers are like, okay, we'll go get a guy who has 9 career kickoff returns for touchdowns. That'll serve us pretty well. And again, as it pertains to the receiver position, we look at Calvin Austin, Quez Watkins, Van Jefferson. I saw Nick Farbaugh from Steelers Now, or maybe it was Derek Bell from Steelers Now. One of those two, say, oh man, it's been a rough few days to be Calvin Austin. And I think that, as I've said before, Steelers fans are far higher on Calvin Austin and what he can be than what I think the Steelers themselves are. I think that Austin's going to be competing to, to have like the 4th spot on the depth chart. And the Steelers are still going to go out and get 2 more receivers, whether that be sign one and draft one, whether that be trade for one and draft one, or whether that be draft 2. I think that the last few days have been, I don't want to say like a black flag on Calvin Austin, but, the Steelers recognize that, okay, he's not going to be our 3rd option, but he can be the 4th option. And a lot of fans are like, oh, Calvin Austin will be, the 2nd or 3rd receiver. No, he will not. No, he will not. And I think the Steelers recognize that. So, it's going to be now with guys like Quez Watkins, Marquez Callaway, and Denzel Mims also have futures contracts. They signed Quez Watkins, Calvin Austin. That's going to be your group of guys competing for roster spots 4 through 6 on the depth chart in terms of receiver. Or maybe, a few years ago, they only carried 5 receivers. That was the year that they had, I think it was 2020, where they only carried 5 receivers and utilized Eric Ebron a lot. So don't rule that out, where they just surprisingly only carry 5. So it's by no means is it a guarantee that Quez Watkins is on the final 53. Hell, there's no guarantee that Calvin Austin's going to be on the final 53. But I think signing Cordarrelle Patterson for that very specific role of kick returner, I think that does light a flame under Calvin Austin, because that was more or less, his role was being the punt returner and occasional kick returner. They mixed a few guys as kick returner last year. But that was Austin's primary role, was returning punts. He did it in the preseason. He looked good doing it. But the fact that they bring in Patterson as well as Quez Watkins, I think that indicates that they're going to see, okay, which one of these guys is going to be sticking around. I don't think that both Watkins and Calvin Austin are going to be on the final 53. I think it'll be one or the other. If I had to guess, it'll probably be Calvin Austin, just because of the familiarity there. And I think in this offense, he can, be a fun gadget guy. And I made the comparison yesterday. I think he could be, a Khalif Raymond for the offense. And I think that that's kind of what the Steelers are trying to figure out, is who's going to be that type of player for them. Is it going to be Austin? Is it going to be Watkins? And again, the signing of Cordarrelle Patterson very much indicates that, okay, Calvin Austin, you need to show us something, whether it be in the return game, whether it be as a receiver, like show us something that warrants keeping you around, because, outside of, one splash play against the Raiders, he really hasn't shown them much. Granted, he was hurt all his entire rookie year, but even then last year, they didn't really utilize him a lot. And maybe that's more on the offense than it is on Calvin Austin himself. But again, I think that these signings at receiver and now Cordarrelle Patterson, I think it's, to light a flame under Calvin Austin, where, it's, hey, show us something, man. Because outside of one long touchdown against the Raiders, we haven't really seen a whole lot. And, a few punt returns in the preseason that were nicer than the Steelers have seen in recent memory. So I like the signing. I'll say that up front. I think, with the new kickoff rule, it makes perfect sense to add a proven return specialist, even if he is 33. If that's his main role on the team is going to be, hey, you're going to return kicks. You're probably not going to be used on the offense a lot, but hey, you can return kicks and be good at it. And if Najee Harris or Jaylen Warren get hurt, you can be a guy that we can put in at running back and trust will be, at least competent in the backfield to complement the other. So I think it's a good signing. It's 2 years, $6 million, not a lot of money that they're giving him. My guess is that's more of a front-loaded deal. So let's say that he does do well this year, but struggles next year. They can cut him without having to worry about any money. It makes sense for the Steelers to bring in a guy who is a proven returner. They haven't had a proven, good returner. Deontay Johnson was an all-pro punt returner his rookie year. But they haven't had just a return specialist since Allen Rossum. I can't remember the last time they just had a return specialist on the roster that was good. Again, Deontay Johnson was an all-pro punt returner his rookie year, but it's not as if Deontay was a return specialist. So I can't remember the last time that they went that sort of route to have a guy back there who can be a legitimate, threat to take it to the house. Again, even at age 33, he's still a guy that can make things happen. And again, I like the signing and I like the aggressiveness, where we're seeing the constant sense of urgency from Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin as, okay, hey, rules changed. Let's go get a guy that will play into our hand with this new rule when it comes to returning kicks, where, we have a guy who is one of the best to ever do it, returning kicks. Last season, the NFL only saw 22% of kickoffs returned. That number is going to jump up very much in 2024 with the new rule. And again, if Cordarrelle Patterson's only role on the team is returning kicks, fine. And if he slides in as a backup running back, should Najee Harris or Jaylen Warren get injured and they can put him in as the complimentary back, cool. But again, didn't have much of a workload last year. Only had 50 carries for the Falcons because they drafted Bijan Robinson. They had Tyler Algier. And I do believe that Cordarrelle Patterson kind of expressed a little bit of frustration last year because of that. But excited to see what this turns into. And we'll see how it plays out. I'm so excited for training camp this year, man. There's so many new faces, and a lot of guys that are going to be vying for position, especially when it comes to the skill positions at receiver, and now bringing in Cordarrelle Patterson. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what all this looks like come July, and then in preseason, and then obviously eventually the regular season. But excited to get a close up and personal look at this in the next couple months and see what these new Steelers look like, because these are new Steelers, man. This is not the Kevin Colbert era Steelers. They are not sitting on their hands in March, constantly making moves, and this is just another one of those. So good stuff all around. I like the signing, and I'm excited to see what Cordarrelle Patterson can do as the Steelers kick return specialist. And we'll see how that plays out through camp and then through the preseason, and then once we reach the regular season, who the receivers are going to be. Because again, I don't think that all of the guys that they've brought in on futures contracts and or free agents are all going to be there. So we're going to see a lot of competition from the skill positions, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you like this content, especially if you're a Steelers fan for this type of stream in specific, please subscribe, like it, all that fun YouTube stuff. I know, believe me, when I watch YouTube and people ask me to do that, I hate it too. So forgive me, but it does help out the channel. We just crossed 500 subs, and for only doing this for the last year, that's a fun little milestone for me. Now I'm trying to get to 1,000. So if you like the Steelers content or just the general NFL content, would appreciate a little bit of a subscription, a like. It would mean a lot to me. I appreciate it. It's Pittsburgh Steelers signing Cordarrelle Patterson, and we'll see what moves they continue to make. And when they do, we'll be right back here to talk about it. So appreciate y'all for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.